Hey there, good morning. I'm Yankee Prepper, and in the real world I'm just an average, pretty much normal guy in middle America who happens to be self-employed. But compared to the average witless asshat on YouTube that's gathered all of his accumulated knowledge through watching reality television, doomsday movies, video games, and Alex Jones, I am a frickin' superhero that knows everything about everything. And today, I'm about to show you and share with you my knowledge on coffee grinders. Okay, this is one of these questions that I get a lot of. And so rather than try to continually answer the same question, I'll make a video about this, share with you what I know, hopefully point you in the right direction. How you grind your coffee is a very important step and will greatly affect the outcome in that cup of coffee that you make. If you want a consistent cup of really good coffee every time, then you're going to have to pay attention to the way you grind it. You know, you can go out and source the best beans from the top farm in the world. You can have it roasted to perfection and then totally destroy it in either the water that you put it in or the way that you grind it. And a lot of people just skip over these steps. They don't think it's important, but this is a very important step. And none of this is really that complicated. That's the crazy part. It's not that complicated to make the best cup of coffee in the world in your house or out in the middle of nowhere every time. But you got to take certain steps to get there. At the same time, I want to counter the other side. Okay, and that's the side that's telling that you got to spend a lot of money on a coffee grinder in order to do it right. This is simply not true. I'm going to show you that here today. I've got 5 personal use coffee grinders here in front of you. These you would use in your home, and I've got one commercial one that I want to go over with you. This coffee grinder is a Krups, model number GVX1. It's a very good coffee grinder. I highly recommend it. This one is a Cuisinart DSM8. It also goes by the model number CCM16. It is also a very good coffee grinder. I highly recommend it. These both cost respectively around $50–60 bucks, and they'll last you about 10 years or more. This is your typical blade grinder. This one happens to be a Mr. Coffee blade grinder. There's a lot of people that use blade grinders to grind their coffee, and all of these people are way wrong. You'll never see a blade grinder in a coffee shop, and there's a reason for that, because blade grinding coffee sucks. Forget everything that you heard off that K-Tel commercial about your magic bullet, okay? It can't grind coffee well. You cannot get a consistent grind using a blade grinder. That's why some mornings your coffee may be pretty good. You're like, wow, this is great. And the next morning, using the same water and the same coffee, it's not quite as good, or something's missing, or it sucks. Because you don't know when to stop that blade grinder. And the longer that you blade grind your coffee, especially if you're going into some of the finer grinds when you're using the AeroPress, or let's say, you know, making espresso, you're actually continuing to burn your coffee in that blade grinder, because blade grinding creates a lot of heat on your coffee. On the end here, I've got a couple manual grinders, and manual grinders are cool. This one's from Turkey. It's an actual Turkish brass coffee grinder. This one is a very popular one as well. It's a HARIO. Now, I'm going to try to give you the best example I can think of. Having a manual grinder is cool in the same way that having a manual ice cream maker is. You take it out maybe once or twice a year, hand it around to your friends, and everybody grinds it, and everybody, you know, it's kind of fun. It's a fun party thing, kind of fun to do once in a while, but not very practical for making your coffee every day. And lastly, I'll show you my commercial grinder. These will run maybe $900 to $1,000 new. You can pick them up pretty easy for $300 to $500 bucks used, and they will last you the rest of your life. They are Burr grinders. They have multiple settings for what you want to grind your coffee at, and they usually come with a half horsepower or even a full horsepower motor. The one thing that these coffee grinders and the commercial one have in common is the fact that they are Burr grinders. That's very important when you're going to choose your grinder. Make sure you get a Burr grinder. And what's a Burr grinder? Let me show you. These are Burrs. They're inside your coffee grinder. They sandwich together. There's 2 of them, and they crush and cut your coffee beans. That's a Burr grinder. as opposed to a blade grinder, which has basically a bent piece of steel that twirls around very fast and smashes into your coffee beans. And that's what makes these a better or a good coffee grinder, is the fact that they use burrs to grind the coffee. It's not the shape of the plastic or the Cuisinart name or the Krups name. None of those things. It's just the fact that these are burr grinders. And so what I really want to quickly show you now is how to take this $50, $60 decent or good burr grinder and turn it into a really good burr grinder that can compete with the $200 and $300 grinders. Let me take you back to my commercial grinder just for a minute to make a point. I've taken off the front here and I want to show you the burrs on this machine. There's your front burr and your rear burr. To create these burrs, they're first cast out of a mold and then they're put on a machine and machined out to sharpen. Even in a really busy coffee shop being used heavily every day, you would only have to have these burrs sharpened maybe once a year. Cost about $100 to have it done. And it would take a decade of use to even ever think about replacing these burrs, even in a busy coffee shop. Going back to the home grinders, the burrs on these machines are also cast from a mold. However, they are not machine sharpened. And that is the one step that separates them from the really expensive machines. And we're going to fix that. This is a $10 file set that I bought at Northern Tools for doing a little home gunsmithing. In about 10 or 15 minutes of my time, I can take one of these $50 or $60 home burr grinders and that cheap file and turn it into a $200 or $300 machine, at least quality level, simply by machining the burrs myself. So what you're doing is taking a good burr grinder and turning it into a really good burr grinder, just with a little elbow grease. I find that the triangular file works best for sharpening these burrs, and this literally took me to do the top one less than 5 minutes, and I just follow the natural shape of the cut. The bottom one is a little trickier because it's much harder to get to, but rather than take the whole machine apart, I take the file, take the coffee compartment out, and just go through. And there's just enough room to get a file in there. And I hold the burr down and then sharpen it through the actual exit point of the coffee grind. And there's just enough room to get in there and do it. You'll only have to do that once when you first buy it. You will not have to do that again for another 10 years. You don't have to do a home grinder every year, because the coffee beans are actually never going to wear that down. What wears the burrs down is that there is debris in the coffee beans occasionally. There's rocks from the place of origin, sometimes even screws from the machines that they're dried with. So, you don't have to do it very often. Like I said, once when you first get it, to turn that machine into a very good coffee grinder. And then if it lasts for 10 years, you'll do it again in 10 years. So there you go. 50, 60 bucks. 10, maybe 10 minutes of your time filing, and you got great quality, very consistent grind every time for at least the next 10 years. What's the moral of this story? Hey, it pays to be smart. But before I let you go, I want to go over one more thing concerning coffee grinders, and that is, folks, you have to clean them. I know a lot of people don't believe that coffee is a food, but I assure you that it is. And there are oils, especially in coffee, that will go bad. They will go rancid. I'll tell you what, if you went into your local grocery store right now where they got that public grinder and looked in there, in most cases it would make you throw up. I can even tell you that I've went into some really nice restaurants and took the chance of having a cup of coffee, and I can tell that they're not cleaning their equipment. You can taste the rancidity in the coffee itself. It's just too old, or been sitting there too long, or the equipment has actually got rancid coffee or coffee oils in it. A real good tip for cleaning your coffee maker is to take about a half a cup of rice for one this size, grind it up. Rice is great. Running that half cup of rice through will absorb those oils, run everything through, clean out the burrs, and when you're done, Just put that either into your chicken food or mix it in with your dog food. It won't go to waste. I wanted to show you how clean that burr came out. I mean, it looks like it's just been scrubbed clean. The coffee receptacle and hopper and whatever else you can be cleaned out with a little warm soapy water, and you'll be good to go again. In the end, having a good cup of coffee is really not that complicated, but you got to know how to do it, and you got to do it right.